Beloved, hear me now. You carry burdens that were never meant to rest upon a fragile mortal frame. You toil under weight, anxiety, guilt, fear, shame, all pressing so heavily upon your soul. Perhaps you think that in your own strength you must bear it all, strive harder, perform better, manipulate circumstances, earn relief. But where has that ever freed anyone? Does striving dissolve guilt, love you into peace, silence that inner storm? No, for you were never meant to be the ultimate judge, the ultimate savior, the ultimate comforter. Now consider this. What if you stopped fighting? What if you laid down the struggle, the endless striving, the self-reliance that convinces your heart you can carry the load? What if you gave it away to some unseeable, yet infinitely capable than your own feeble resource, to one transcending your failures, surpassing your weakness, able to shoulder that load without fatigue, without trembling, without hesitation? What may seem terrifying, relinquishing control, could become your only path out from under that crushing weight. You must know that unless you surrender not partially but fully, your soul will remain restless. You cannot partition, I'll keep control of this part, but you may take that. No, the disease is total. The dominion is complete. You must relinquish all. Every fear, every dark thought, every ambition to manage your own life must be released into hands far firmer than yours. The moment you withhold, you continue the bondage. Imagine a farmer, bent under the yoke, tilling ground that is harder than it need be. Suppose someone stronger comes and says, "Give me the yoke." What foolishness to refuse! Yet we refuse, clinging to this harsh burden as though we could tame it ourselves. You see, many cling to their sin, their shame, their unrelenting guilt, as though they can refine it, domesticate it. But that is vanity. You will only grow more tired, more burdened, more crushed beneath the intolerable weight. Perhaps you ask, how do I do this? It is simple, yet awful. You must take your trembling hands and open them. You must stretch your arms toward what you cannot see and whisper your surrender. You must confess that you are powerless, that your strength fails you, that your wisdom misleads you, and you must abandon your efforts to manipulate, to earn, to perform. You must cease striving to prove your worth and rest in the sufficiency of a power greater than yourself. But understand, this submission is not natural. Your flesh rebels. Pride whispers, I can salvage this. I can still manage outcomes. Fear snarls, what if I lose control? What if I get hurt more? The enemy of your soul will taunt. You cannot trust. You will be disappointed. Yet that is the lie dressed in darkness. The true path is trusting beyond sight, beyond feeling, beyond what your heart tells you. Trust is an act sometimes blind, anchored not in your senses, but in what is unwavering, unchanging, true. When a storm arises, you are tempted to grab the oar, steer the course, fight the waves. But what if instead you release the oar? What if you say, I cannot tame this sea, but I entrust my frail bark to one who commands winds and waters? Your heart trembles at such vulnerability, yet that is the turning point. In that moment, you cease to rely on self and begin to lean on immutable strength. And the storm may not recede immediately indeed. The thunder may still crash, but your soul finds peace in the giving. Let not your faith be in feelings, nor in circumstances. Do not wait until everything is serene and easy to relinquish your burdens. Do it now in the eye of the gale. Do it in the darkest night, in your deepest despair, when your hope feels dead. That is the test of true surrender. That is where transformation begins. When you are least able, surrender. When faith seems foolish, surrender. Once you give it truly, you will find that you are no longer enslaved by shame. Guilt will no longer hound you. Your past does not have the dominion it once had. You will walk freer, lighter. not because your circumstances changed, perhaps they worsen, but because your soul knows the one who holds all things. In that resolve, the bitterness loosens its grip, the fear loses its hold, the compulsion to perform fades into silence. Yet do not mistake, surrender is not passive, it is not weakness, it is the most courageous act. To let go is to trust is to act. You now act not in frantic striving, but confident rest. You stand firm, rooted, anchored, while the torrents rage. You live in obedience in small matters, integrity, confession, seeking truth, because you no longer need to perfect yourself to be accepted. You treat others kindly, speak plainly, walk humbly, not to earn approval, but because that is the fruit of a surrendered heart. And know this, surrender does not shield you from trial. It thrusts you into them more, because as you give your cares, the unseen one will test your sincerity. You will be tempted, take it back, manage this, control that. The voice will urge you to reclaim. Resist. Every time you resist, the muscles of your faith grow. It is painful, it wounds, it feels unnatural, but it yields deeper communion, increased peace, more resolve. Do not wait for perfect peace before you yield. Wait for yield before you receive perfect peace. Let go before you feel ready, not after. That is the inversion of true faith. You will not be made ready by peace. You receive peace by the act of yielding. The sacrifice is the pathway to rest. You will find that giving saves you from despair, for despair is born of believing you hold the weight. Once you release it, you become free to hope, free to love, free to live. You can breathe. You can look people in the eye. You can confess your sins with boldness and humility. You can risk obedience. You can move forward into obedience even when the ground shakes. But beware, there will be seasons when your flesh will scream. Nights when shadows loom, relationships that hurt, failures that shame. In those seasons, you must come back to that posture, open hands, transparent soul. Repeat the act of surrender. Don't count the times you fail. Return to the altar of relinquishment. Say again, it is not mine to hold. It is not mine to control. I surrender. Even if you tremble, even if your knees are weak, surrender. Over and over. You must preach to your heart. When anxiety presses, speak, this is not my yoke. I cast it off. When guilt whispers, speak, I have laid it aside. When fear besieges, speak, I will trust beyond sight. The tongue must declare what the heart often forgets. Discipline yourself in this warfare. Also, be vigilant about companions who demand your control, who urge you to carry more loads than meant. Some will guilt you into responsibility. That is burden, not service. Some will say, you must fix this, must carry this for us. But you cannot tighten your clutch to others' burdens, then tighten further to yours. Be compassionate, but wise. You may help others to relinquish, not carry their yoke. Encourage surrender, not partnership in burden bearing. Observe the lilies, the sparrows, though here you do not see them. Consider their care. If you refuse to give your load, you live as if the cosmos is blind to your groaning. You live as if your tears fall unseen. But there is one who counts the tears, who hears the sigh, who knows the broken. You need not justify every sorrow. You need only bring it, open-handed, and let it rest. There will be moments when your body aches with strain, your spirit is numb, your mind races. That is the exact moment to give again. Do not wait until your strength returns. Do it while weak. Do it while trembling. That is the posture of faith. The grandest act is to surrender not after power, but before it. Surrender in weakness, and power is made manifest. Beloved, do not cower before shame or condemnation. You are not perfected because you surrendered, but the path to sanctification begins there. You will stumble. You may stumble often. Yet each fall leads to the altar of return, if you will only get up and surrender again. The one you surrender to does not discard but restores, renews, sanctifies. This is not veneration of self, but laying self aside altogether. You may ask, will this really change me? I tell you, yes, though gradually, though sometimes imperceptibly, your character will be reshaped. The chains of anger, envy, lust, pride begin to weaken when you no longer carry them. The addictions, the compulsions when you relinquish begin to lose their hold. A love for the broken arises. You learn endurance. You learn purity. You learn trust. Now walk in obedience to what you know. Do not wait for assurance. Obey when the gentle whisper calls you to relinquish another burden. Sacrificial giving into quiet surrender. Do what you fear to do, confess, admit, release, risk. Do not numb yourself. Do not distract yourself. Confront, submit. That is the life of radical faith. Yield your time, your ambitions, your relationships, your reputation. Yield control even of how you are known. Allow weakness. Let vulnerability be your strength. Let confession be your shield. Let abandonment be your banner. You were made for this, to relinquish, not to retain. You must contend against the spirit of self-reliance, that insidious whisper that says, if you don't carry this, who will? Answer, not I. The one to whom you give is capable to carry it all. Why should you strain? Rest in that. Cease the incessant pushing, pulling, performing. The sabotage of your soul is in your clawing grip. Sacrifice is surrender. The greatest sacrifices are not in your wallet or schedule, but in your control, your plans, your will. Do you dare to surrender your dreams, your desires? What if they are rearranged by one infinitely wiser? What if your dream dies so a truer one lives? Be willing, hold them loosely, lay them down. Do not delude yourself. Obstacles will come. You will question, you will feel forsaken, you will suffer, the enemy will mock. You gave it, but nothing changed. Stand firm. You gave, continue to give, you obey. Continue to obey. Persevere in your surrender, even when all is dark. Your faith is made perfect in proving. Let your prayer be this: not my will, not my control, but let the surrender stand. Whisper it when you groan, when you cannot form sentences. Use tears if words fail. The posture of the heart matters more than polished speech. In the silent cry you yield. As you live thus, you become a spectacle to the senseless clinging around you, people clutching burdens, burying themselves in duty, performance, self-help. You walk instead with open hands, peaceful countenance, confident stride. You do not pretend absence of struggle. You live, nevertheless, in peace beyond understanding. That is your testimony. Do not hide your surrender. Speak openly of your need to relinquish burdens again and again. Let others see the path, not your perfection, but your ongoing surrender. Let them know peace is not earned but given, not grasped but surrendered. Let your life invite them to unloose their grip, to give, relinquish, trust. Finally, though not finally, know that your journey is lifelong. The day you stop needing to surrender is the day you have hardened your heart. At every stage, fresh burdens will press. At every season, new trials will demand new giving, but you are never alone. You ride the waves of surrender across long years, growing not in self-sufficiency but in dependence. May you relinquish today every lingering hold. May your hands open. May your spirit bow. May your heart find rest in that which never fails. May your life become the reflection of surrender, and may the burden you carry no more be your own. True freedom and peace come only through full surrender. Let that ring in your soul until the walls of your resistance crack and your heart begins to tremble at the possibility of relinquishment. For what most call freedom is a facade built on control, performance, self-justification, self-management. and what passes for peace in most hearts is but a shallow reprieve, a momentary lull between storms. But real freedom, deep rest, soul, quiet that is found only when you let go utterly, completely, without reservation. Partial surrender is hypocrisy dressed as piety. Faint trust is still bondage. Only total giving yields true liberty. Consider this: when you clutch tightly, your fingers hurt. You grasp, you strain, you tense every nerve, and yet the load remains heavy. Your muscles scream, your bones ache, and even when you manage a bit control, a bit, the burden shifts, creeps, returns. You cannot perfect your grip, no matter how you sharpen your intentions. So the only way out is open hands. Yet the flesh rebels, the spirit balks. The voice within whispers, you cannot let go of this. You must preserve some control. Pride, fear, shame, ambition all conspire to keep you holding. If I relinquish this, I will lose what little advantage I have. If I release that, others may trample me. If I surrender this, I become vulnerable. Thus the heart panics and the fist tightens. But the bondage deepens. To surrender truly demands courage. To bow under weight one cannot lift. To admit one's impotence, and to entrust the unseen, the unproven, the mysterious. A soul must die to the illusion that it can carry its own burdens. When you pray, take this, you must mean it. When you confess, I give it. Your spirit must echo that confessing. Not I'll keep some, and not I'll retain part, but all that I cannot carry I surrender it. When you surrender fully, your soul begins to breathe. You feel an invisible space opened inside. The pressure eases, the trembling quiets, a gentler heartbeat emerges. The heavy weight lifts not always outwardly in your circumstances, but in your inner world. You may still walk through storms, suffer losses, endure afflictions, but you bear them not as one enslaved, but as one at rest in a higher strength. The tyranny of guilt loosens its grip. The sting of condemnation grows faint. The compulsion to overperform fades, and you begin to live not for your rescue, but in grateful response to the rescue already given. But do not be deceived. Surrender is no passive surrender to chaos. It is resolute, decisive, intentional. It is a war cry, not a whimper. When you yield, you wage war against your self-reliance, your manipulation, your pride. You refuse to carry what was never yours to carry. You take your trembling hands and you open them wide. You do so daily, you do so hourly, you do so in public and in secret. That is the discipline of freedom. In that surrender you learn humility. You confess your inadequacy. You stop pretending strength when you are weak, wisdom when you are lost, righteousness when you are stained. You speak honestly with your soul. I do not have enough. I do not know the way. I cannot hold this. And in that naked acknowledgement, a greater strength finds place. The weight that was crushing you is taken, held, borne by one whose hands do not falter. And yet this path is strewn with tests. The enemy will shout, you gave it, but the burden presses on still. Indeed it may. The night may remain dark, the pain may linger, the affliction may persist, but the difference is you no longer wrestle alone. Your soul rests in a power that bears where your arms fail. Even in the pressing, you find peace not because the load is removed, but because it is borne for you. You carry not a yoke, but walk in freedom under care, because when you surrender fully, you are no longer your own. You are not held captive by your past, your failures, your fears, your compulsions. You no longer have to salvage your reputation, carry your shame, secure your acceptance through performance. In giving all, you are delivered from the lie that you must prove your worth. That lie shatters. The heart, once desperate, begins to rest in what cannot be overturned. What does not depend on your effort, your manipulation, your cleverness. See how the human heart invents idols to cling to control, achievement, patterns of self, defense, manipulating people, planning outcomes, arranging safety nets. All are attempts to hold up your frail fortress. But they collapse under the real weight of life. You are forced again and again to bow. The true question, will you bow in surrender or in despair? Will you yield your idols willingly or wait until they break your neck? When you surrender fully, the pressure to fabricate illusions falls away. You need not perform for acceptance. You need not act as though strength is yours. You may be weak, transparent, humble, dependent. That is the freedom, that is the peace. You may be met with misunderstanding, rejection, mockery, but nothing can shake what is anchored not in your outward defense, but in the immovable. Let me press you. Do not wait until you feel safe or able. Do it now, even while trembling. Do it before your knees beg, before your mind debates, before your reason concludes. Let that posture of handing over be your first act, not your final act. Because you will have more to surrender tomorrow, a newer fear, another control, another sin, another despair. But the gift is in the giving, so give again and again and again. You may feel nothing at first. You may feel emptiness, confusion. That is not failure. That is the void that must be filled with dependence. Resist the temptation to reclaim. Resist the voice that says, you gave, but nothing changed, so take back. Do not trust your feelings. Trust the act. Trust the one to whom you gave. Hold fast to that surrender even when darkness reigns. In that holding, peace is born not from shiftless resignation, but from the triumph of relinquishment. What have you to lose? Your illusions, your pretended strength, your obligation to carry what was never yours. You will lose your frantic striving, your fear, driven vigilance, your exhausting performance. You will lose the exhausting burden of maintaining your facade, and in that loss you gain eternal rest, undisturbed peace, soul, rest that circumstances cannot steal. You become free. Again, know this. Freedom is never in hanging on. It is in letting go. The soul tightens to die. It relaxes to live. You cannot strangle peace into existence. You cannot force rest. You must unhand, ungrasp, uncontrol. You must surrender. And surrender implies trust not in your feelings, not in random chance, not in your shallow plans, but trust in what is steadfast, unshaken, beyond your reasoning. So let your confession be your weapon. Everything I cannot carry, I give. Let your prayers be simple. Take it. Let your posture be open hands, bowed spirit. Do this in worship. Do this in crisis. Do this in ordinary. Do this when hope seems dead. Do this when your faith is thin. Do this through tears. Do this with groans. Do this with silence. Do this boldly, humbly, persistently. There is no alternate route to deep rest, no detour around it. Only through full surrender do you step into the peace that remains. You will not journey this in perfection, but in perseverance. You will stumble, you will reclaim when your heart panics, yet each time return to the altar of surrender. Confess again, let go again. Each release is a blow struck against the tyranny of yourself. Strongholds crumble, new courage rises. The phrase "I can't" becomes your affirmation to relinquish. The phrase "I yield" becomes your creed. The phrase "it is done" echoes in your spirit. Let life teach you this. Every time you withheld, you lost peace. Every time you overreached, you broke under burden. Every time you pretended strength, you stumbled. But every time you surrendered, you found reprieve. Let your memory carry that proof. Let your scars remind you of the folly of holding on. Let your failures drive you to your knees to give again. You will begin to notice that your soul is quieter, that guilt no longer stalks you, that fear loses its voice, that you can step forward into obedience you once feared, that you can embrace weakness without shame, that you can live in transparency, confession, dependence, and find a dignity deeper than achievement. That you can love, trust, hope not because you must, but because you may. And though storms still come betrayal, loss, suffering, despair, you face them now unbowed. Not with pride, but with surrendered confidence. Not with denial, but with recognition that your strength is insufficient, but the power sustaining you is not. And that understanding births a quiet peace no storm can steal. So walk this path, die to clutching, kill the urge to manage, kill the compulsion to perform, kill the demand to control. Take your trembling, opening hands and surrender. Let the soul whisper, I cannot, I resign, I give all, and then rest in the deep undercurrent of peace, flowing not from your efforts, but from your surrender.